July 19th, 2003. The House passed the Captive Animal Protection Act, H.R. 1006. Dear Howie, I am listening to a CD called Tuesdays with Morrie. It is about a man who is dying from Lou Gehrig's disease and his reflection on what was important in life. This morning, I awoke thinking about what he had said about family. He said the difference between family and friends is that even well-meaning friends usually won't be there for you when you can't adjust your own pillow or wipe your own behind, but family is there for you without fail. Family, he said, will never leave you. He was speaking of blood relatives, but he included his wife, the person narrating the CD, who'd been a former student. Family are those who have an unconditional love for you. It is the way I feel about you. Besides, I love stroking your behind. And then I said, Tuesday, the House passed the Captive Animal Protection Act, H.R. 1006, and Wednesday, it went very well in the Senate for Bill 269. Woo-hoo! Howie wrote back saying, read the book, it's on the shelf, I'd wipe your behind too. This latter part is written from the future. Actually, I wrote it today because I realized as I was reading this, I haven't been talking about all of the stuff I've been doing legislatively. And I got to thinking about why is that? People always said you should write a book because your life has been so interesting. And I felt it was the personal experiences that people would find interesting, and nobody seemed to care about the cats. And so I didn't do a whole lot of writing about it back then because I didn't think that was anything anybody would ever want to hear about. Little would I know, all these years later, that we'd be making such huge strides for the cats and that it actually would be something that people might want to hear about. So I wrote this today saying, up until now in my diary, I haven't been writing about the progression of my efforts to end the abuse of big cats via the legislative process. I saw from the work we did to end pig gestation crates in Florida back in the 90s that legislation was the fastest way to end the abuse of animals. In the late 90s, a bill Tippi Hedren called the Shambhala Act was introduced, and it failed year after year until the 2002 introduction, which was largely led by the Humane Society of the United States, HSUS, and perhaps the International Fund for Animal Welfare, IFAW. That was when I got involved and started rallying our growing mail list from the Visitors to Wildlife on Easy Street to contact their members of Congress. The large organizations had amazing tools for connecting supporters to their legislators, but I couldn't afford those. By 2003, I had figured out HTML code for our website, which was originally created in Front Page and later converted to Dreamweaver. I would study the underlying code and how the big organizations' online forms worked, and then recreated them, to the best of my ability, to function the same way. Not having the underlying engine, I had to insert connections to lawmakers manually, but it was easy for my supporters to take action, and I felt it was worth the time and effort on my part to make sure they were heard. The new version of the Shambhala Act, this time called the Captive Wildlife Safety Act, to distance the bill from Tippi's version, was reintroduced in 2002, and I was all in. Tippi didn't want the circus exempted, and neither did anyone else, but Kenneth Feld was too politically connected for that version to ever pass back then, and I think that's why the bigger organizations took the bill on and modified it a bit. There had always been an exemption for the circus in the bill to try and get it passed, and then thankfully a couple of years ago the circus went belly up, and so they are no longer a problem. But back then we had to take into account the fact that they could way outspend us when it came to political donations. The Captive Wildlife Safety Act passed unanimously in a Republican-controlled Congress and under a Republican president, and it made it illegal to sell a big cat across state lines as a pet. It became law in December of 2003. Ever since then, my primary mission has been to close the loopholes in that law to end the cub handling and to phase out the private possession of big cats.